This is the kind of thing that would actually break this technique, because I've got the thing telling me, yeah, go live or waiting for you, and I'm waiting for you, and then it's like, yeah, these are types of just in time that doesn't work, basically.
Says an error occurred. I must have missed you by a few seconds.
Yeah, maybe. You probably broke the entire system, mate. But there we go. Anyway, we're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on Air. It is episode 280, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And today, we've got a very exciting show for you folks. I am actually personally interested in this. I'm interested in most topics, but I'm particularly interested in this because I think it is such a game changer. And I've kind of, got myself into a rabbit hole a rabbit hole that's also a tunnel vision. So I'm now thinking, oh my God, this is going to change everything. And it is about how Google's new AI-powered search generative experience might change how we interact with the web. In particular, is it going to divert us and keep us on Google's generated content and essentially slow down our click-through rate because we're going to consume more of what Google is generating for us rather than the page of blue links going through? That has huge implications for anybody in recruitment marketing, employer branding, any content type of play. Anybody running a website, basically, you need to be paying attention to this. So I hope you're going to be enjoying this show, and it should be something interesting for you. Folks, let's just do some quick sound checks as we usually do. You might notice I've got a new mic. Have you seen this? Let's have a look. I've got a lapel mic this time. I'll tell you why. It's because I had some roadworks outside and it was so noisy. I just need to get a microphone closer to my mouth. And I just think maybe this is also better audio quality as well. So let me know in the chat whether you can hear me okay and whether it's actually crystal clear. Because I want to if this is better, I'm just going to chuck the old Yeti mic away and just use the lapel. And we should be carbon copying and streaming this across, I think, a dozen sites. So we should be watching this on my live stream, on LinkedIn, on Adam Gordon's LinkedIn, on Adway's LinkedIn, on Steve Rothberg's LinkedIn. If you are watching this on a LinkedIn channel, do let me know in the comment thread there whether the audio and video is also okay. It'd be quite cool to check this out. I think not many companies know how to do this. I've still yet to see any other broadcasting live stream do it in the way that we're doing it, which is basically encouraging lots of people to simultaneously live stream a single conversation. And I think it's going out across a dozen channels right now. So LinkedIn takeover, we're doing this every Friday. Okay, people seem to be hearing this okay. Going global, we're already there, Nicola. Don't worry about it. Okay, great. Let's say hello to Adam. Adam Gordon, great to see you. How is you? You're looking red again, so I assume you've been out in the sun, getting that sort of a pretty Anglo-Saxon look at you in the summer, mate.
I don't know why it always looks. I look red on here. I look in the mirror and I look brown. Come on here and I look red.
Yeah, this is what passes for a Scottish tan. Basically, a pink glow from being in the sun too much.
I'm looking forward to doing this in August, and I am genuinely brown.
Yeah, indeed so. Okay, listen, we're gonna review the newsletter, then we're gonna bring on Victor, and then we're gonna bring on everyone else in the show. So let's do the newsletter real quick. Adam, did you read it last week? And if so, what was interesting, sir?
Yep, I did. Before I do this, I just want to say one thing. A big shout out to Brexit supporters, because we're now in 16 consecutive months of declining exports in the UK. Well done, the Brexit fans. That was really great. Thank you for doing that. Anyway, after my political message, let's go into the newsletter. What every CEO should know about generative AI, the McKinsey article. McKinsey is great because it's pretty dumbed down, to be honest, which is there is genius in being able to dumb down such a simple, such a complex issue. So what they've done is basically written out, here's what as a CEO you need to understand about this. And a lot of it is to do with tasks and jobs, how that's going to work. So they have created 5 different areas where they think jobs can be impacted. Classify, which means sort of sorting large data. So taking information and putting it into, like, for example, listening to calls and going, yeah, actually, this one's fraudulent. Put that into the fraudulent bucket, for example. Edit, so editing text, editing imagery, summarizing. So summarizing lots and lots of text into like a paragraph or whatever. Lots of recruiters have told me that they've been summarizing information. They've been using ChatGPT to summarize lots of information that they would write out maybe to a senior hiring manager stakeholder, and they know that person's not going to read 500 words, but if they can get it down to 50 and keep the main points, then that's going to, you know, help them communicate better. So summarizing is a good one. Drafting, so actually writing like marketing campaigns, writing code. That's the obvious one, yeah. And then the last one is answering questions. So like internal help desk for technical things, for example, as well as consumer like tech, chatbots and things on websites. Although I do have to point out the National Eating Disorders Association in the United States has just had to bring down its chatbot, which was using generative AI, because after only 2,500 interactions, bear in mind it's the National Eating Disorders Association, it started handing out harmful dietary advice. Right. So I mean, it went wrong.
There's there's people using ChatGPT for things like therapy, and I think that's actually quite an interesting use case. But there's obviously some dangers associated with that, because the thing is not going to particularly care too much about your mental health, really, and it's going to just give what it thinks you want. But the thing with any kind of, if you have a problem and you're looking for support, often the time the thing that you want is not the thing you need. So it is that there's huge caveats as to how this thing can be used. I think overall it's a plus. But yeah, the example of the provision of bad medical advice. I mean, imagine where ChatGPT might have been in the COVID era. Like, imagine if we had this in 2019 or 2020, how many people would be typing stuff in and say, right, coronavirus has come. What do you reckon? There's not enough information to feed the AI as to what to do. So we have the production of recommendations could be all over the place. So yeah, there's some really interesting dilemmas that are coming our way. So yeah, absolutely, Rob. The AI drone story, I think, is one of the going to be the main. It's going to be a landmark in terms of our relationship with AI. So for sure. Okay. Anyway, people should be reading this. It's a really good start post. I think it's useful, aimed at the CEO level, but therefore I think useful for anybody in our business in recruiting, because the reason why it's aimed at CEO is it's just basically saying someone who's a little bit distant to the technology, that's us as well. So it works for us also. Okay, give us a couple more, Adam. What else?
Right. So there was 2 articles about Glassdoor. One of them pointing out the correlation between some companies who had done a reduction in force, and noting that it was interesting that time frame coincided with a enhancement in Glassdoor scores. I don't think there was any proof in here, but it led the writer of this article to conclude that companies are gaming the system. Like, no shit. And then the other article, which was about this underworld trade in Glassdoor gaming, right? So said most people taking part in this appear to be in Southeast Asia. And people have got all sorts of different payment models, from monthly retainers around $2,000 a month. Seems pretty good value if you've got terrible Glassdoor reviews, like incoming all day, to like project fee. I will write you one for like $20, to success-based fees. So like $35, and I'll manage to get that one removed. And I know, Ed, shocking this, isn't it? I just was interested in like the economics of it, and you know, what the marketplace looks like.
Do you know what? We're all skeptical as to Glassdoor reviews, so that's definitely true. But if for want of an alternative, it's still there and candidates still do scrutinize it, and it is still important to do something about it, even though we know it could be BS. I think it's very similar to restaurant reviews, for instance, where, you know, you go in there, we're so vulnerable to social proof as a way to understand whether something is good or bad. And we're hyper suspicious of anything that has 0 reviews. And we're hyper suspicious of anybody that has a negative review, even though that negative review, clearly, as these examples have shown, can be as a result of either malicious behavior, or you could even pay someone to do it. I mean, the Underground Economy post was not just about putting great sort of reviews for your product, but you could literally go to a competitor's product and pay people to slam those guys. So it's one of those where it's obviously very corrupt, but we don't have a solution. Right? We have no solution. And in the absence of this, we have to play the game. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's difficult to come up with alternatives that are authentic. Bill Berman describes like people that write reviews as extremists. They're either writing it on the basis that they have had a great experience or a terrible experience. If your experience was okay, you're probably not going to bother. And I would do it.
Dude, there's research on Uber that says exactly this, because Uber, there's a rating for the driver, right? And they found out that if it was randomly distributed, you'd probably have a median score based on just the percentages. But it turns out that no, very, very, very few people would review at 1 star. And very, very few people review at all the stars. Most people go just above average. So they will say, you know what, he's all right, I'll give him, you know, just above the median average. So the average score on Uber isn't the mathematical average. It's basically skewed slightly to the positive. And the theory is this, exactly Bill's sort of thought, which is an extremist who hates the company will basically review negatively. Most people who have an average experience will simply not review and bounce. So it's not collecting a full enough sample. And most people, even if they don't feel particularly pro or con either way, they just say, look, this guy's, you know, driving a car or whatever, I want to help him out, let's give him this. And so you can't really trust what people are saying is the bottom line. But yeah, so that's the rating experience. It's basically all that. Anyway, I think we're ready to go. We got one more real quick.
one more quick one, which is digital nomads. So some research on digital nomads says the average digital nomad is 34, white, male, single, software engineer, carnivorous, carbon conscious, loves Japan more than anywhere else. Stays in their job around about 8 months. Typically works from a home office. Likes hiking.
You're missing the big one. Loves coffee, mate. Of course.
Oh yes, loves coffee. And when digital nomads congregate in a particular area from a different piece of Brainfood, when they congregate in an area, it turns like random buildings into really good ones, like beautiful offices that people want to go and work in. It brings upmarket shops and like upmarket coffee to the area. Cities love it because, you know, there's loads of benefits to the city, but the locals don't, because the gentrification means that the price of property just goes up, and it's
digital nomadism is basically gentrification. It's the same pros and cons argument, and you're going to get two sides of the fence on this. It's an unwinnable conversation. From my side, I'm generally pro, because I come from a town where there's no digital nomads, and there's never been a single penny spent. Not a single tourist penny has ever been spent in my hometown. Why? Because it's a terrible place. And therefore, I have seen the other side of it, where you have places that basically are unpleasant, people don't want to go. Guess what? It's super deprived, and it's actually no good. Tourism, digital nomadism, it's essentially, in my view, a repatriation of privileged wealth back into a poorer part of the world, grab the money, find a way to make money out of it. That's my advice that way.
I mean, that links to another piece of Brainfood you included about like the wealthy, like people going from the wealthy north to the less wealthy south.
Yeah, it's
hemisphere.
It's a repatriation. I mean, the people that are coming in from, I mean, again, look at the digital nomads link, guys. Basically, it's all from people in the global north, so to speak. So first world developed countries, the countries that essentially have had the vast majority of the global resources going their way, etc. And they can afford to go and check out these other places that haven't had that. And it's like a reverse immigration, so to speak. But the way I'm thinking of it, the one way to view it is that it's actually a repatriation of the wealth that might have emerged from that poorer place in the first place. So I'm kind of all for. All right. Anyway, let's get on with the show. We're talking about Google's search engine experience. Let's see where we're at. Thank you, everyone. It is my birthday today, so I appreciate the messages. Thank you very much. Let's bring on Viktor. He is going to give us a sponsor message and also his view as to what all of this is about. Let's see whether he is going to be, you know what, I've got confidence that Viktor's going to be all swagged up on brand here. Those guys have spent a lot of money on brand. There, look at the studio. Look at the studio. Look at the lighting.
Hello.
The Adway. Have you got your own hex code for that purple, Viktor?
Yeah, of course. We can send it in chat.
It's now called the Adway purple, as it should be. Thanks. Viktor, great to see you. You're going to stay with us on screen, but as you are also the sponsor for this week, why don't you address the audience directly and say who you are, what is Adway, who should care about it, and off you go.
Oh, thanks, and a happy birthday, as everyone else said as well, and thanks for being on, and thanks for being able to sponsor it as well. Like, I'm super happy to that one. So yeah, I'm one of the founders of Adway. Founded the company 6 years ago, something like that, with a simple idea of connecting data and take all the job vacancies and just push them out on social media to grab all the passive audience. Basically, that was the idea. Now we have a suite of different products. So I'm actually gonna ask Adam to help me pitch this one. So trying to figure out what is our suite, what are we doing, but it's around talent attraction. But Adam, how would you summarize it?
Big pressure.
Well, which one? The advertising one that you just talked about?
Yeah, Adway. Who Adway is?
Oh, Adway. Okay, so I mean, Adway is Adway.
The pressure's on.
I've done a better job than, as Viktor knows. I've done a better job than this. Adway talks to people where they are on the internet, whether they're looking for a job or they're not.
Perfect.
There we go. There's a new strapline.
Bit basic. I can do better than that.
It's a bit basic. Let me give it a shot because I think I know the product a little bit. But essentially, it's about delivering a message to a person that might be interested in your brand, right? So it's using a lot of the consumer understanding, but in a jobs context. It's very, very straightforward from that perspective. It's just doing it on social channels. So think about where you're at, where you're spending time. No one's on the websites anymore. You're looking at TikTok, you're on Snapchat, you're on Instagram, whatever it is. That's where that message is going to be. Meet the audience where they're going to be and give them a nice advert, and that's where it's all about. So there we go.
It is a tremendous way of if you especially if you've got a B2B brand or a challenger brand, it's a tremendous way of getting your brand known to people who might be in your future talent pipeline, but they're not actively looking for jobs right now. They're a bit further up the funnel, and then bringing them into a process.
Do you know what? It's the brand recognition for employers is huge. I mean, especially for early career, even more so early career, I would say. But because nobody know if people don't know the industry sector, they're just going to pick out the top brands and they're going to say, right, this is the best ones. And the way the internet and social web can help companies compete with the very biggest brands out there is that you can be smart with how you message that audience. So it's a big equalizer for companies that aren't McKinsey or whatever. So you've got a good shot there.
Thanks for that one. You're doing my job easy now. Explaining.
There we go. Yeah, you got to retire, Viktor, man. That's that's all you got to do. No, let's talk about this topic. We're going to bring on all of our guests in a second, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are on Google Search Generative Experience. I've read it only recently, and I'm an amateur coming into it, but I was thinking, whoa, this looks like it's a real big change. Maybe part of the reason why ChatGPT beat Google to market is because Google maybe was frightened about launching something like this because it would change so much about what it is. ChatGPT went and did it, and they've realized we have to go anyway, and they've gone, and it just looks like a huge change. How would you describe it as an impact for marketers generally, Viktor?
Yeah, so yeah, it's the big question, right? They're probably sitting around with the possibility of doing what ChatGPT had done now, but they haven't really been able to push launch on it. Now they are forced to do it, but they are like $162 billion or something is only on Google search. So they are depending so much on the ads, and on ChatGPT there's no ads, and this is going to be a little bit tricky, but of course they're going to find a way to put the ads up in the in this layout. But I think, broadly speaking, I think the web will be more conversational. So
what does that mean, man?
Yeah, so that means that I guess almost everyone in here has been using ChatGPT now. It's like using your like virtual assistant. Like they know all the answers. You can just sit and talk to them. You will sit and talk about your future place as well. Like, I want to work at this company, but then you will ask your virtual assistant, like, does it suit me? What's the benefits? Who's the competitors? What's the salary range? What can I do, not to do? Does it fit my profile? So you're gonna have a conversation with Google or Bing or ChatGPT about that specific employer or other employers or that specific job. So you're going to have a conversation like you're doing today with a career advisor or a recruiter or something. It's going to be conversational instead of you going into the website, clicking around and viewing, trying to read up on what do they stand for, does it suit my values, is it a good match. You will just ask questions. So that's what I mean by being conversational.
You know what? I think that's true for anybody who's interacting with these bots. The sticking of a conversational interface in front of the GPT was one of the understated innovations that OpenAI did. But have a think, folks, about how this then impacts things like web traffic. Have a think about how this impacts things like SEO, because we're going to be spending more time interacting with that direct conversational interface and not actually going to those websites. At least far less. Go ahead, Adam.
Just to be clear, ChatGPT is just an interface. That's all it is for OpenAI.
Yep.
It's just a user interface for OpenAI.
Yeah.
And the reason it's gone so gangbusters is because it's just a conversational. It's really basic to use. So Viktor's absolutely right. Like, everything that we do online is going to progressively become more conversational. And if ChatGPT hasn't proven that's the way we need to go, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, it's definitely a UX revolution, isn't it? And what's going to happen, I think, on the web at the back end of it is going to be significant. Because let's not forget, without Google, we would have a totally different web than we currently do. They changed the way in which companies design websites. They changed a lot of web development behaviors because we wanted to rank high in Google. They actually spawned a lot of mini industries. The SEO industry started emerging, content marketing emerged, all of this stuff because we're trying to rank high on Google, right? Trying to get to be the page one. Now they're potentially going to change how we experience the internet again, and I think there's going to be a huge cascade effect from all of that. Okay, let's bring on some guests here. We're going to bring on Steve first before we bring on Louise and Matt. Give me a sec. Where is he? There he is. I want to bring on Steve because he was the one actually introduced me to this idea. I want to give him some credit and some space on this. And I also there's very few people that know more about this game than Steve Rothberg. So let's bring him on and let's see what he's got to say about the matter. Folks, by the way, have you got access to Google Search Generative Experience? If you're not in the US, you need a VPN and you need to do a wait list on it. But if anybody's tried it, let me know in the comments. What do you think? There he is, Steve Rothberg. How are you doing, sir? Very good to see you.
I'm good. I'm happy 29th birthday.
Thank you very much. I can't get away with 29 anymore. I'm kind of hanging on in there saying, yeah, I'm 42. No, I'm not. Doing my best, mate. Doing my best. Steve, for the folks who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, I'm the founder of College Recruiter, job search site. We're kind of early careers meets programmatic, meets cost per click, cost per application, global, multi-language, multinational, multi-currency.
There we go. Fantastic stuff. Do follow Steve. He's a wonderful contributor to the industry. And one of the examples actually was your post on this and throwing the alarm bells on it and giving me some education. I wonder whether you could do the favor to the audience and just explain in your own words what you think Google Search Generative Experience is. Why is it different from old Google and how does it matter?
Yeah. So at a really high level, I think that this is going to be the most disruptive event or period of time in almost 3 decades for recruitment marketers. When the internet basically became commercialized in the early to mid 90s, that was highly disruptive, but that took a long time. That took a decade before most employers had really migrated from print and billboards and stuff to online. This, I think, is going to take a couple of years. And for a lot of employers, they're already digging into it. So over the last few years, we've probably all become used to when we go to Google and we run a search for something that's pretty easy, to a little snippet. What's the weather today? How many British pounds equal a US dollar? Some fairly simple fact like that. We get these little snippets up at the top of the Google search results that, in a sentence or two, a short little paragraph, it gives us the answer. And then right underneath that answer, there's a link there to, weather.com or wherever that information came from. That link almost never gets clicked on because when you go to Google, you're looking for an answer. And if you got the answer, why would you go to the content site that Google pulled that from or sites? Sometimes you also see a larger piece of information. What's the weather going to be like each day this week? And then you might get almost like a bigger kind of a graphic. What Google is rolling out now is the next step in that. So if you can envision a Wikipedia article, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs long with citations throughout the paragraphs so you can see where that, let's call it a fact, came from. That's what the Google search results are about to be for many and probably most searches. So if you were to search for something like, what are the companies near me that are hiring part-time retail workers? You're going to get a search result with maybe a list of 10 organizations and then some paragraphs about each of those organizations, what a part-time job looks like, what a retail job looks like. And that's filling up your entire first screen on Google, which is all most people ever look at. Underneath that, you're going to get Google for Jobs, which is now live and has been for, probably a year or so in almost every market. And Google for Jobs is basically a job search engine, a true aggregator. It's trying to pull all the jobs together from all sources. It's what Indeed used to be. And then under that, now you're talking at the very bottom of that first page, second, third, fourth pages, and we can even talk about whether they're going to be pages anymore. But underneath that, that's where you see links to blog articles, to corporate websites, to job boards, et cetera. That stuff is getting pushed so far down that it might as well not exist. what we're seeing in the early iterations from Google is product type ads up at the very top of the search results. The employer's logo, even if the job came from a job board, it's got the employer's logo, not the job board's logo. And it typically has like job title, job location, and sometimes I've been seeing salary range. And when you mentioned earlier, Hung, early careers, those are the only three things that early career candidates care about at that stage in the process. They see a job, they click on it, they apply to it, then they wait back to hear from the employer. If they hear from the employer, which most don't, that's when they start to care about what is the brand and who am I going to be working with and what does your company do and all of that kind of stuff. So it's candidates are going to see almost all of the information on Google until they apply to that job. And when they apply to that job, it might be on the job board, it might be on the company site. But if you, like we have invested a lot of time and resources into building out blog content to try to pull people into your site and then convert them to somebody who's registered, somebody who's applied, then you need to really, really rethink your strategy, because all that reading is now going to be done on Google.
I've got an analogy which I think works perfectly, right? You tell me, you experts on screen here, you tell me how good this is. So
I'm ready.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Tear it down. So Google is going to change from being a signpost to the hotel. So in other words, instead of saying, hey, the hotel's down here, it's 5 miles down the road, there's another hotel down there, 8 miles down the road, it's going to say, we're the hotel, come and stay here. So your time on Google, as in google.com, will expand rather than us just generating a bunch of links and then bouncing off to those places. Google's generated content is going to satisfy us most of the time. So think about how ChatGPT, for instance, produces a long paragraph for you. You generally satisfied. It's like, okay, great. It's going to increase. It's going to decrease our click-through rate. I think that's, for me, that's pretty obvious. We're not going to do that. In the same way, Adam, I'll let you in a second. In the same way, Wikipedia does provide citations, but how many of us actually click through them? It turns into a research thing that academics might do. Adam, you're going to contradict me. Go ahead, man.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say that. I mean, that's what the purpose of every one of these big tech companies is. I mean, Google have been doing this progressively more for a long time. So it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You said like, I need flights, and it would bring up Skyscanner. Say I need flights, and it brings up basically Google's version of Skyscanner within the browser at the top, within the search results, so that you do it using Google's version of Skyscanner.
That's the equivalent to Google for Jobs.
Yes, exactly. It's the same thing.
That's
exactly
that's not the equivalent to the new Google search engine result pages.
My point is that Google will be attempting to become the hotel using Hung's analogy, and they've been doing exactly that for quite some time. So that's good analogy.
8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 for analogy accuracy, guys. What do you reckon? Is that an 8 or a 9?
I mean, the construction on the hotel, the construction on the hotel has been happening right in front of our face, though, for the last 10 years.
Folks, I'm going to show a quick video from Google because it just gives you 90 seconds. I think we need to see this. If you haven't seen it already, I'm going to show you it because I think it's worth us having a look at.
Perfect.
It's high risk. Let me just, is it share screen?
We lose every guest.
Yeah, we're going to lose everybody. Okay, I'm sharing screen. Where are we? We're here. Everyone see my screen okay? Yes?
Yep,
We're good.
Okay, I don't think you can hear this. Can you hear it or not?
No.
Turn it up. Something.
I don't think you can hear it because you can only hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, this is the generated search. And you can see this is generated content up here. All right, it's going to produce basically natural language, generating it. This is not retrieved. This is generated information, right? And now it gives you the links that you can click through to.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And those instead of product ads, those will be job postings.
Yeah, job posts instead of product ads. Really good observation there, Steve, as well.
And I think the experience is going to be so much better. Like, imagine how many really bad websites out there, but that are SEO optimized. Like, we're spending so much time going through bad websites nowadays because SEO has more or less just destroyed Google. So everything will be upgraded now. The experience will be awesome. And Google will find a way to put the ads in front of every user anyhow.
That's a really good point, Victor. Will it solve our problems from having bad web experiences? Because it'll actually it'll basically be a much smoother, unified experience from a UX perspective, and it'll present stuff like this, which is your brand. But as you say, Steve, these might be future jobs, right? Or career pages or what have you. Here, by the way, is what Steve was talking about. The on-screen real estate of the generated content looks like it is going to be 2/3 of the screen.
But I think what's important, sorry to interrupt you here, Hang, but what's important in that section is that that's your first result, right? But being conversational, you will then ask follow-up questions, and then one more, and then one more, and then say, I was actually not what I was looking for, and one more, and one more, one more, until you refine the results to suit your needs perfectly. And that's where you as an employer then need to be present at that experience and with your links and then your offerings or whatever you want to sell if you're on e-commerce or something. But you're going to have a conversation with Google as you're doing with ChatGPT. And the conversation could go back and forth many times until you find exactly the view you want to have, which is exciting.
Victor, what Victor just said is super important, and it's not been part of what sort of has been a forefront of the conversation. So if you were to run that, what companies are hiring part-time retail workers near me, and you get that first result, in Victor's example, you're going to get the summary, the results back, and then people are going to be trained over the next, I think, couple years to then say, now show me the part-time retail jobs that pay at least £15 or $15 an hour. Now show me just the ones where the company sells women's clothing. And all of that's going to be on Google. So if your content, if your website isn't marked up properly for Google to be able to really see and understand your jobs, and if you're not being transparent about pay and putting that in your markups, then God help you. Stephen O'Donnell, I see in the comments, also said that images and video are going to be much more important. Totally agree, because you can't put video into that generative display yet. It's just text so far.
So something interesting you can do, actually, like everyone in this live podcast could go into ChatGPT or after the live, of course, but then you can play if you were searching for a job. Like, just ask ChatGPT, like, give me some sales jobs in Chicago, and they will give you 5 examples. Then you ask them, give me the sales job with this, like 10% more than I have today. I earned this today, and they will refine the results. Then you say, I want to apply for a job that believes in D&I and fighting the environmental climate change, and they will refine it again and again and again. And suddenly you find 5-10 results that's perfect for you. Then you ask them to extend it to 100 results. That's the experience from a job seeker experience. So if you're an employer or recruiter here, you need to make sure is the content you're putting out on your career page or job postings, are they being indexed, and are they going to be presented in the way you want it to be presented? Are your EVP super clear? Do you have meta descriptions on videos, imageries, like
hang on, Victor. We don't even know how Google is going to present or rank those options, right? Because we're talking very much old Google might rank it in those ways. Yeah, maybe you pay. Maybe that's the way Google replaces ad revenue. They're going to replace it by saying, you know what, we'll insert this if you are an approved company or something, and it goes up there.
But they would probably go down the line of you doing SEO, like the same approach, but large language model optimized, and then it's going to be based on pretty much the same principle. I think so, at least from an SEO perspective.
Let's bring some more other guests on, but we're going to talk about SEO in a second, because I think Google might actually be aggressively against SEO, because SEO is a form of gaming the system, right? And so they've always had this kind of I wouldn't say hostile, maybe adversarial relationship with the SEO industry, because they're always trying to make sure that natural content, best content goes top rather than something that's been SEO optimized. So I wonder whether generative AI might be the big, not even a sledgehammer, but the tidal wave that wipes off that industry. So we will see. Anyway, before you say anything, Viktor, we have to move on. Folks, this conversation is very, very important. Obviously, we're already bleeding huge amounts of time on it. We've got another half hour to go. However, do not let Brainfood Live be the show that starts a conversation and is a bottleneck that stops it. It's very, very important that if you care about this topic, that you connect with other people that also care about it and continue the conversation elsewhere, even if this is off Brainfood channel and other places. So if you care about what Google Search Generative Experience is going to be doing to recruitment, why don't you take your link in the URL, your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream, or if you're watching this in the comment thread somewhere on LinkedIn, share it in the comment thread there and just connect with everyone else that you see. 200 plus people watching it on Crowdcast. I think there's several thousand probably watching it in all of the different channels that we're currently talking through. If you go and connect with like just 2% of those, you're going to walk away with an enhanced LinkedIn network, which, by the way, has its own way of discovery and has its own way of optimization, and being heavily connected is one of those. So make sure you avail yourself to this. If you only watch Brainfood Live for the purposes of collecting more connections, I'm good with it. Go ahead and connect. Make sure you're well fortified your network. Okay.
Lion.
The lion is these days unacceptable, Viktor, even though I know you were previously one of those. I was as well once upon a time. Have we got rid of him? I didn't mean to do that.
there goes the sponsor money.
No lions.
It's gone. Okay, no, we need to get Louise on. We need to get Matt on as well. Let's bring Louise Triance. I think Matt's here with us. I don't know whether he is.
Can I ask Steven and Viktor, does this, like what we're talking about just now, are we, like, typically in recruitment, I'm going to use a cliche here, which is we are X amount of years behind mainstream sales and marketing, right? Are we going to be in recruitment following other industries when it comes to making use of, the new Google like this? Or are we going to be because in some ways we're actually leading the game in aspects of advertising? I think we're leading most other industries. So are we going to need to follow other industries, or are we going to have sufficient intellectual capital within our existing domain to make use of all this? Viktor?
My quick answer is that everything is changing now. Like everything is changing now online. And no industries are ahead of the other industries. Everyone needs to adapt. Even Google needs to adapt. And they're risking $200 billion because they are a bit slow on adapting. Like it will be crazy. Like what's happening now is super, super exciting, I think. But who is leading it from an industry standard? I don't know.
I just think that there's more money in things like the travel industry than there is in recruitment and other like industries that you would have previously considered to be classifieds. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe recruitment's grown so much that actually we have as good a chance as any to really be leading the way on this. I'm not sure.
I think you're going to see the job boards, the recruitment marketplaces, the recruitment agencies / staffing companies go first, because they look at candidates as profit centers, and I think your typical employer is going to lag and follow. But I don't think it's going to be years from now. I think that the job boards and others that see candidates as a profit center, that traffic as a profit center, we're going to be out there over the coming months, getting some wins and also falling flat on our faces and making some bad mistakes that 2 years from now we'll look back and say, how the hell could we have ever thought that was the right thing to do? And employers, maybe 2024, will be following in the path that we pave.
I feel like your
guys. Let's introduce Louise here.
Get somebody intelligent in this conversation.
I'm tired of the chat, lads.
I entered the room and you all just carried on talking. No one
How very male of us.
I won't. Seriously.
Absolute disgrace.
Nobody said somebody else has entered the room. Let's say hello to them.
Yeah, virtual hug from me here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Louise, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Who are you? What it is you do?
My name's Louise Triance, UK recruiter, Job Boards Connect, Crowdcast.
Indeed, part of Crowdcast. A wonderful product that it is. I don't know why anybody doesn't use anything else. Louise, we've sat there, we've heard all of this, and it's like, oh, this is going to big change, etc., etc. What's your perspective on it in terms of how companies will react with their own websites? Like there's companies out there thinking, oh, let's invest in our career pages, let's do this, this, and this. Are they going to invest more or less as a result of what Google are doing? Do we have a clue?
Oh my God. They're going to be super confused for a while, aren't they? Because what we're saying, I mean, we've got experts here. Stephen, I'm classing you as an expert. There's expert comment in the chat. The rest, Hung, you've read a ton of stuff. Adam, you know what you're talking about. And it's still super vague. So I liked Adam's question. Are we going to lead the pack? I don't think so, because I don't think we know what we're doing, but there's no reason not to. And I think to your point, Stephen, I think that recruitment agencies probably might be able to move faster and maybe will. They'll be panicking. Stephen O'Donnell put something in the chat about, find me jobs, direct employers, cut out the agencies. So, if I was a job seeker, I might be tempted to do that. So I think that maybe recruitment agencies will need to move faster, but they're going to have to understand what this is first. I know you've got questions about SEO and analytics. Do we know the answers to any of those?
I'm thinking SEO's screwed. I mean, I'd love to hear SEO people come on and give me some chat on this, because prior to Google generative AI, this is generative is the main thing. It's not retrieving information anymore in the same ways. It's combining the generation and retrieval. So it's almost like you're giving two things as a result of this. Big layer on the top, that's 2/3 of the screen, is its own generated data. How are you going to SEO generated content? It's probably a way, but you're going to have to get into the training data to do it, right? So is anybody doing any SEO within the training data? Can you even do that? Does that even make sense? Does people know what I'm talking about here? So in other words, Google will be using certain data sets to come up with its generated answers. The best thing to do would be to get into that data set and populate it with your commentary. So for instance, I'd search on Bard, who is Hung Lee, probably some comedian Australian would come up. I say, right, how do I get rid of this guy? Right, I need to somehow either create more content, or I need to bribe someone in Google to say, look, include all of Brainfood sort of into the training data, and then displace the other Hung Lee from the top of the ranking. So is anyone doing any of that? Does anyone have a theory? I don't know.
Well, one thing I can add to that is that there has been I'm just going to call it a rumor. There's been a rumor circulating around recruitment, which is that if you use generative AI to create your career site and your landing pages and things like that, it's going to get downgraded by Google. But when you look at Google's guidance on this around generative AI and SEO, it's not. It says we will penalize shit content. It doesn't matter whether it's written by a human or whether it's written by AI.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They don't care about the input. They don't care about who wrote it, how they wrote it, why they wrote it. They care about the output. How valuable is it to the user?
And they'll tell that by was it spending time on the website, right? So in other words, if people bounce 2 seconds, that's terrible. If they stay there for 2 minutes, they're going to presume that's good. So the quality of what is good or bad is, what did LinkedIn call it? The hang time or something, or the time on site or something. I think LinkedIn have a very similar way of measuring a quality post, like how long do people actually spend on it. Therefore, whatever you're doing on a website, basically you got to get people staying there and potentially interacting with it. So static websites that don't do too much, no good. Is there a way to have a conversation on your website somehow? I think that's going to have to be mandatory at some point, right? Very soon you're gonna have to enable the user, in this case, let's say a job seeker, to have interaction with your domain, because that's going to be a ranking factor in how Google are going to surface it up or not.
Yeah, but
Thank you, Jim. Yeah.
Sorry, Victor.
It's going to be a hybrid, right? So the generative part it's going to be tricky and hard to SEO optimize or LLMO optimize or whatever we call it. But the part where the hybrid comes into the actual facts, there's where we can figure it out. So when you ask something about, as was mentioned before, which job suits me based on this and this and this and this, they need to gather the information somewhere. Like the facts needs to be gathered in a nice way. So that could still be SEO optimized or like a high quality optimized, like the facts part of the hybrid. Are you following what I'm thinking here?
Yeah. And also, I thought it just occurred to me, Victor, but you could actually use AI to help you do some AI SEO optimization,
They do.
right?
A lot of e-commerce stores have already done, and Google accept this. So it's already happening.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Folks, if you have any questions for our guests, use the Ask a Question feature. We're going to get to those in a second. Just the bottom of the screen there, just ask a question to any of our guests. We're going to do our best to answer that. Okay, let's switch tack a little bit to address recruiters that might be in charge of recruitment marketing, employer branding, building career pages, etc., etc. What sort of things should they be doing now that they see this around the corner? I mean, it's still on trial. It's still US only on beta, whatever it is, but presumably it's going to be rolling out soon. And I believe Google will give people an option whether you want to use this or not, or old. I think everyone's going to use it, in which case, what do companies do if they own their own career site? Adam, I'll come to you in a second, but let's go around. Louise, have you got any thoughts on this?
I haven't got a clue. I mean, that is essentially my question. Exactly that is, what on earth are they going to do? Because if you want to research it from the UK, Adam, you're using it with a VPN, are you?
No, not with a VPN.
Oh, okay.
Just directly.
Okay. So, because I saw something in the chat saying that in the UK...
Yeah, we're not in the EU, though. It's the EU.
I see.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So in this country, recruiters could now be using it and trying it.
So we need to use it. Supports Brexit.
You know what? I'm the same with you, Adam. I hate Brexit, but the only thing that gives me some sort of hope is the EU directives against AI. I'm thinking, you know what? It's worth it. Let's crash the economy. Have a miserable country. It's worth it if we have some AI stuff. It's fine.
I don't want an American diet, but I'm happy with their AI.
I'll do that trade. All right, listen. Let's go to you, Steve. What are your thoughts? How does it work for company? Any company out there? You own a domain. What have you got to do?
Yeah, the best advice that I heard was yesterday. We had a guest on the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. I'm a co-host of it. And the guest from Job Hub Central said that it's going to become critical to build content on your site that can only be consumed on your site. So things like salary calculators, things like a chat kind of experience where if you're a job board, recruitment agency, whatever, and candidates want to get information on how much should I get paid? I've got a degree in this. What are my job options? That kind of stuff Google is going to be really bad at least for a long period of time. The more of that you can put onto your site, Google will send those people to your site. I also think that the whole SEO is dead. I disagree. I think it's just going to be really different. So like one of the screenshots in that video that you showed, Hung, it showed that the paragraphs up at the top, the generative text where Google is kind of writing the content, alongside of that, it has pretty prominent links, little boxes, product kinds of boxes to recommended resources. So I think the winners that get those spots are going to be massive winners. But if you're not in one of those top spots, you're dead for that kind of a search.
Where are the ads going to go? Does anyone know?
Yeah. So one thing that I think we all need to be really clear about, there are 5 of us here. There are 600 people, posting comments. None of us know. Google doesn't know. So how could we know? Google is testing and A/B testing. And what we end up with 6 months from now is going to be really different than what the smartest minds at Google think is going to happen today. So the ads, Google is the largest media company in the world. their revenues come almost exclusively from selling advertising. They're going to have those ads. I think we're going to see higher CPCs. We're going to see more prominent job ad inventory with employer logos and, you know, salaries and stuff like that up at the top of the search results. And I think in the Google for jobs, which is being pushed way down, you're going to see less organic traffic, free traffic going to job boards, going to employers, and more prominent ads running alongside of that.
Yeah, very interesting. Before we go to Viktor, I'm going to say one quick thing about having unique content that must be consumed on your website. This will be exactly, basically, interactive stuff that exists on the website. A website calculator, let's say a career mapper. You're going into a career site. How do I map my career through? Maybe some psychometric tests that's in there, so you give people something to play with. That's going to be hard for Google to process, whether it's going to be retrieving it or trying to ingest it as a pre-training sort of data. So it can't do that. It's good at doing text, flat text. So you can still use flat text, but you can't rely on it. Very, very important point. So that gives me some idea as to how that future might look like. Viktor, your thoughts? I'm a TA person in charge of a career page. What do I do?
I think you need to zoom out a little bit here, because what we're talking about now is the active behaviors of candidates online, right? On Google, like that's active candidates. It's still the minority of the people out on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
The majority is still on. I'm biased here, right? Because I'm representing Adway, but the majority is still on passive. It's still on social media. So you still need to have a nice experience on social media, and you want to drive the traffic to the career page, or you want to convert the traffic on social media, but then nurture the traffic on the career page. So you're still going to need a really nice career page in order to convince the hard-to-get candidates to really apply for you. But
yeah, a really good point. I just want to interrupt you real quick, Viktor, because what Viktor is saying there is essentially, it's not necessarily about using the page as a discovery thing, but it's a validation thing. So in other words, someone's walking around doing whatever, they encounter your brand, they're going to then check you out. And that checkout point is what maybe the value of the career page will turn into. You've got to really
they will also be conversational about it on Google. So they will ask Google about that company. They will ask the company if it's a good fit. So if you have a career page today with very, very little information, nice experience, but very, very little information, it's going to be hard for Google to answer about that employer. So I think what you can, if you want to safeguard a little bit as an employer today on a career page, you should make sure to just push a lot of content publicly, like videos, audios, blog post, your EVP, like a lot of content, because that's going to be in the conversational mindsets. And you're probably going to need to have a conversational chatbot on the career page to answer questions, etc. But if there is no content, the generative AI will just make up things that they believe, like they probably have this salary range. We don't know, but everyone else has it, so they will probably have it if you don't have it online.
Yes,
you
need to, the salary. Yeah,
they will just make up things if they don't find the facts.
I had a thought there though. Is there not a risk that sometimes a job seeker might not even see your careers page? So they might. So I know what you're saying. You need to have that there so that the generative AI can find the information. But I think there's a risk they may not even actually ever go to your website to apply for that job.
Sure. Absolutely, and that's happening today on Facebook or LinkedIn, eSupply, or everything. Like people are applying.
Channel where they never see all that amazing work you've put in,
absolutely.
But you've still got to do it.
Yeah, you need to do it for some of the audience, but maybe not for all of them. It's different path where you come from, I think.
Yeah, I think the vision is blasting, like unlocking employee generated content just to get more of your voice into that marketplace has got to be a good idea, even though we don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it just gives your brand some great opportunity to be discovered. I think SEO, yes, there's probably still some SEOing to do, but we've got to be smarter about it. It's not just about chumming out loads more content, even though I can anticipate what companies are going to do is simply just times 100 the AI generated content and just blast out like a constant stream of crap. I think that's ultimately going to be harmful. I think Google will hammer you hard for that. So yeah, but again, speculation. Adam, I've left you best for last, mate. That's the reason why you're desperate to say something. So let's keep him back. Now it's time for you to go.
Right. So in response to your question around, like, I'm a recruitment marketer, what should I do now? What you should do is you should follow Louise, follow Steven, follow Viktor and all of his Adway colleagues, because once anybody knows what to do, they're going to know and they will tell you. That's it.
That's actually really smart advice. In fact, the smartest advice is exactly this. Improve your own intelligence in the marketplace by connecting with smart people, and you'll discover the information sooner. Don't try and dive into the Google itself. I mean, if you don't know what you're looking for, it ain't going to help you. That's one thing that search, whether it's generative or retrieval, it's not going to support you if you have zero questions to ask. If you do not know how to prompt this thing, then it doesn't matter where you're coming from. So get into all of it. You need last names. I don't understand, Cindy. Everyone is here. But you can just hover over. Actually, you're right. Louise Triance, Viktor Nord. It's only Louise Triance.
One thing. Sorry, can I just quickly say one other thing, which was Louise's point was a very good one around the jeopardy of not actually getting anybody coming to your career site at all. I think that a lot of employers, either if they don't have the gumption to be able to work out what to do, they have to lean quite heavily on College Recruiter and the other service providers and Adway, of course, who can help get them the right type of visibility so that just doesn't happen. And I do wonder, Steven, if this is going to amplify the job board, the necessity for the job board to be absolutely on top of this, because about what's going on than any employer really will.
Absolutely. I mean, at College Recruiter, trust me, we're talking about this a lot. If we don't add a lot of value to what the candidate is searching for, then we will get bypassed. And I think there are something like 100,000 job boards in the world. About half of them are in the US, and probably 90% of those, it's just job postings. There's no content, there's no engagement. Those job boards that are just essentially just aggregating, good luck to them, because they're going to need it. We all, including the employers, we need to add value to what the candidate really wants. And let's be frank, what they want with most jobs is a paycheck. It's not about your mission or anything like that. It's like they need to pay their rent, they need to buy medicine. And that's, for most candidates, what they're looking for right now.
So actually, on that point, Steven, the main value of any job board is going to be: is the job real? Is the job is the job unique? And is it urgent? I forget who it was that shared this information. I think it was maybe on Reed, but they studied the amount of agency posted jobs versus direct employer posted jobs. And it was something at least about 50% were agency posted jobs. Now, I'm not saying agency posted jobs is bad, but it's probably weaker as a quality point than an employer posted job, because does the agency have the representation rights for the company? Sometimes there's nothing stopping an agent just posting the job. Is it a duplicate? As another agency already posted it, nobody knows. So all of those signals damage the viability of it. So if your job board is populated for low quality jobs, that's already going to kind of hive you away. Okay, we ought to go to the questions. We're well over time, folks. Let's go really quick to some of this. We've got Leo Pulcher. Leo is saying, okay, with all of these anticipated changes on how AI pulls data, will there also be relevance based on video or other media beyond just written? I think we've answered that a little bit, in the sense that you need content that needs to be consumed on your own domain. That's still not exactly video, but it's moving away from text, right? So anything that can be consumed or harvested, still do it, but you need to produce interactive stuff that basically is unique. Let's keep going. We've got, who's this? Somehow someone's asked an anonymous question. Oh, Cindy. Let's talk about super small companies. How do they compete for the candidates when it comes down to this shift? Does this shift help bigger or smaller brands? Any thoughts on this? Let's make this the last question. Go on, Adam, you got a thought?
Yeah, it definitely helps bigger companies because they can afford to work with companies like Adway and companies like, I'm not saying you're expensive, by the way, but companies like Adway. They know about companies like Adway. They know about College Recruiter. They know about the people who can help them. A super small company is not going to have this knowledge in-house, and they've got big challenges with that. So they need to subscribe to Recruiting Brainfood, turn up for events like this, and they need to build their networks. That's how they do it.
But Adam, that's no different. You're absolutely right, by the way, of course. But that's no different than 6 months ago.
Correct.
That was the challenge they had before, which is why
recruitment agencies typically work with SMEs.
Yeah, exactly. So a recruitment agency, an amazing job board, going to events, joining Brainfood.
Yep, indeed. So any final bits of advice, Victor, and go to you, Stephen, as well. Any final thoughts to add to this?
Play and read and follow podcasts like this. Like the future is amazing, but we don't know. So just read up and don't sit passive, not playing around with the tools. Like if you're passive now, you're going to lose. Now it's the time to be super active and reading up and listening to stuff.
Yep, dive into the deep end. You cannot learn to swim without getting your feet wet, folks. Stephen, final thoughts for you.
Offline marketing is going to become a lot more important. So the networking, going to events, having a "we're hiring" sign outside of your place of employment, putting flyers on people's windshields, stuff like that, I think is going to be more important for smaller employers. For larger employers, any employer, the number 2 site in the world is YouTube in terms of traffic. So get your videos onto YouTube. That's going to be really prime content for Google to recommend, and therefore those candidates will come to you.
Yep. Very, very good. Okay, folks, that's about it. Thank you so much to our wonderful guests. Thank you to Steven Rothberg. Thank you to Viktor Nord. Thank you to Louise Triance. And thank you to Matt Burney, who was meant to come on, but I couldn't find him on the chat. Maybe he missed the memo, or he's disguised his identity, so I couldn't find him. But yeah, that was great. Folks, if you enjoyed the show, follow the channel. We do this every week. Next week, we are going to be talking about conversations Irina Shamaeva has been having with LinkedIn's engineering team. If you don't know about this kind of backdoor conversation, you really do need to know about it. LinkedIn have a bunch of advice as to how or why their search works or doesn't work. Irina has been having conversations with their engineering team on her blog, and they're telling her how it really works. So if you're confused as to why you're not getting the results on your searching on LinkedIn, Irene is going to tell you why. Have to sign up for this. It's up already, 9th of June next week. Make sure you sign up, and we'll see you there. Okay, that's it.
So I just said in the chat there one thing, which is, like, the problem for every employer, but especially an SME when it comes to recruiting, is like the amount of dynamic issues there are right now. This is far from being front of mind, like the most pressing matter. There's a lot of bigger problems than this right now. This one we've been talking about is a big issue on the horizon, coming towards us quickly, but it's one of a whole bunch of different problems. Like, keeping up to date with what's happening on this is going to be a challenge given all the other things that are happening. So people are going to have to rely on experts.
Yeah, and expertise, but also kind of accept you're not going to get everything right, and fumble your way through it. It's so much like early internet, early Web 1, where what do? Do we invest in building an e-commerce? Everyone's like throwing millions at this. No one's ready to put a credit card in yet. But it's like, okay, you got to do something, and you can't just sit there and do nothing. I think that's the worst thing.
It could be really great for recruitment agencies, you know.
I think so. I mean, basically, one thing that is very true that I've kind of learned over time is that no, agency and me are finished. Even though I could probably do something on the side, but I can't be bothered. This is the truth. It's just laziness.
I might do it.
Do it, mate. It requires some more more motivation. Hung low motivation lead. No, what was I about to say? I forgot my thoughts. One thing that recruitment agencies do have, and recruiters in general have, is that they have access to information that can never be that is not used for pre-training, because AIs are all pre-trained on documented data.
Yes.
So the information that recruiters have is, is this guy really interested in the job? That's like through body language, intuition. Or I'm having a conversation with a mate of mine. He's indicated he's looking to move on. That's not documented anywhere. That's information I've got in my head. No AI has that. So I think that's where the human recruiter aspect is always going to be there, I reckon. But we'll wait and see, basically.
Well, and a slight tangent here, but I was having this exact conversation about 2 hours ago with somebody who was thinking about investing in a marketplace business, and my advice was marketplaces might be the first time which genuinely they will take recruitment agency share, because all you really need is the signal that this person is saying they're open to opportunities, which they can't put on LinkedIn if they're like meant to be happy in their job. You can only really say that on LinkedIn.
Let's put it this way. I think agencies and marketplaces have kind of come together, and there's sort of like a Venn diagram as to what it is really now.
There is.
The entire DIY anti-agency Workshape was one of those. Like, listen, no agency in the middle. That doesn't work because people don't know how to interact. So there's a body of human beings like massaging the conversations all the way through. That's a recruitment agent, or at least brokering that type of conversation. So I think that's going to be a dating app, by the way. Right now, everyone hates Tinder, everyone hates Bumble, demographic crisis, no one's getting laid, etc. Terrible. Okay, great. Why don't we put a market? That's the failure of the marketplace. So you put a marketplace that's got a lot of human massaging in the middle of it. Massaging meaning moving the information around. That's the old school marriage maker, matchmaker type of play.
Tech-enabled service, isn't it?
Yeah, but you need a human being to do it. It's like your best mate might introduce you to your future partner. That's what you need at scale.
I mean, Upwork doesn't have humans like
transactional work, bro.
Talking to humans.
That's transactional work. That's like, I need someone to hammer out some data entry. You're looking at marrying someone, or you're looking at moving a job too significant to be laid down for that. Anyway, that's a free idea for people who can be motivated to make millions. So, anyway, that's it. What are you doing this weekend, man? Anything interesting?
Football, rugby, stuff like that. What about you?
Not interesting. There's a few people to see. I've got a bit of work to do, etc. I'm going to relax, chill out today, get some sunshine. Looks like the weather's still holding up. So yeah, all good.
Well, I'm going to get more. I'll be even redder next Friday.
Good. I want to see some redness. There we go. All right, that's it. I'll see you later.
See ya.